Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our June 8 City Council meeting. We will go ahead and begin the meeting, and I'll ask Madam City Clerk if she can call roll, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Rachel Arizmendi,
Present?
Mayor Pro Tem Jean Goss,
Here.
Councilmember Edward Garcia,
Present.
Councilmember Kelly Creeps,
Here.
and Councilmember Robert Parkhurst.
Here.
Madam Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. And if we can all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and if you can say it along with me. Ready? Begin. I pledge a flag. United States. Hands. Thank you. And you can all take a seat. I don't necessarily have words of inspiration today, but what I am inspired and excited about is June 15, the magic date. Although we don't have clear directives from the state level in LA County, we are starting to get bits and pieces in. I know folks are really looking forward to us meeting in person in chambers. At this point, we don't have a solid date for that, but we will make sure you know, and we're notifying city residents so they can attend city council meetings. But again, I'm really looking forward to seeing what our summer will be like, seeing what our new normal will look like. And I'm hoping to see folks in person. 4th of July parade is coming up and some of our activities. Hopefully you've all been watching to see what's expected for those few 3-4 days, I believe, of different activities here in Sierra Madre. I know people have been asking about concerts in the park that we do not have yet. We're hoping to plan that maybe next summer, but we are planning for movies in the park. But please keep in touch with the city. Our community services department has been issuing things out as well as on our social media. But I'm looking forward to seeing people in person this summer. With that, we'll go ahead and move into the approval of the agenda. Do I have any changes on the agenda? Seeing none, can I have a motion to approve the meeting agenda as presented?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Councilmember Parkhurst, a second.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Garcia. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Next item is approval for reading resolutions and ordinances. This is a vote by the City Council to read all ordinances and resolutions by title only and waive the reading in full. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Creeps. Second.
Second.
Councilmember Parkhurst, thank you for the second. All in favor, please say aye. Hearing none opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next item is approval of meeting minutes. I do understand some edits were already submitted to Madam City Clerk. Do we have any other edits to the minutes from May 25?
Just a quick edit, and it doesn't change any substance, but I think Councilmember Parkhurst will appreciate it. It was Cub Scout Pack 110, not Troop 110, that led us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Yes, thank you.
Garcia. Troops are for Girl Scouts, I believe.
Troops are for BSA, so that would be what we used to know as Boy Scouts. It's now called Scouting BSA. That would be a troop, but the younger Cub Scouts are packs.
Thank you. We needed that lesson. I needed that lesson at least. Okay, so with that edit on the minutes for May 25, do we have an approval first?
I move to approve as amended.
You, second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Creeps. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Great. The motion passes unanimously. Next, we have mayor and city council reports. Who would like to start?
Madam Mayor.
Mayor Creeps.
So I attended the senior commission meeting this past week, last week, and they had a full agenda, and it looks like they are looking forward to having re-upped some of their community events and looking to perhaps do some more now that things are becoming more open. They did decide to discontinue the senior commission's contribution to the funding of the meals out of the Hart House, but my understanding is staff is working and very confident that they'll be able to find alternative forms of funding so that we can continue to do the the meals program out of the Heart House, although I think the details and the logistics will change over time as the quarantine orders lift. But yeah, they will be coming, the senior commission will be coming to council, I believe next meeting or maybe the following to present in person. So they
Great.
will come and give a presentation. So they were excited about that as well. And yeah, so they're all doing great. And they gave a fond farewell to one of their members who was rolling off. And yeah, it was a good meeting.
Good. Thank you. Anyone else like to provide a report?
It's, Madam Mayor, it's more of an announcement than a report.
Please.
Maybe some of you at home or sitting here may know or may not know that Sierra Madre Little League's majors team is in the Tournament of Champions, and they're in the final tonight at 7 o'clock. Our very own management analyst Carlson's son, Lucas, is on the team, Sierra Madre Brewers. It's
All right.
He's got his Brewers cap. Yeah. It's a major accomplishment, and they are playing at Lejeski Park, which is Lejeski Field in Eisenhower Park on 2nd Avenue in Arcadia, against the home field team. So if we could make this a Sierra Madre home field by attending, that would be fantastic, and I know our youth would really appreciate it. And there was also closing day, but I'll let Madam Mayor report out on that.
What am I reporting out on? No, please do the honors,
Okay.
Councilmember Garcia.
Since we're on the Little League theme, so we did have the end of the regular season for Sierra Madre Little League, which is near and dear to the hearts of a lot of the council members here. Madam Mayor was in attendance, and she presented a declaration to Scott Clausen for his years of service to not only Sierra Madre Little League, but also to the city in all his capacity. So we said farewell to the 12-year-olds, and that's the end of the regular season. Now we're looking forward to All-Stars starting up in about a week or so.
Yay, and thank you, Councilmember Garcia, for presenting with me. Who else would like to provide a report?
Madam Mayor?
Councilmember Parkhurst?
So I guess it was last week. The weeks are running together now. Councilmember Krebs and Garcia and the mayor, we all gathered in Bailey Canyon Park to thank the California Conservation Corps for their work here in the foothills. And so it was a very nice presentation, and it was great to see all of the young men and women that were there that had worked really hard out there. There was one of the district representatives that represents the San Gabriel Valley, and after the reception, after the event, he said something to me and said that he filled his full team, his full San Gabriel Valley fire brigade with people from the California Conservation Corps, all from kind of the local area, which was really exciting. And then in the last week or so, it's been Solar Week for me. The Energy Committee and the overall board of the Clean Power Alliance approved 5 new solar contracts coming to our area very shortly. And they'll come online anywhere from this fall through like 2023. And then last Thursday at the Planning Commission, we had 2 things. One was looking at trying to correct some of the zoning within the city, which is very valuable. But then also the solar project at the city yards was on the agenda, and the conditional use permit was approved for the solar project there, which I am personally very excited about.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Parkhurst. Mayor Pro Tem Goss, anything?
No report, but I have a word of acknowledgement and kind of thanks. Just sitting here listening to your reports, and I'm looking at our staff, and I think this has become kind of a routine for us to show up here a little before 4, sit down and act as if everything's normal. But these folks here for our staff have done something amazing here, and they've been doing it since early spring. They've actually set up a city council meeting in the middle of a public park. We've been doing it in wind, in rain, in hot sun. They have just done it all, and we've been able to produce quality video for our people at home to see, and for people who want to see their council members up front, live and in person. They've been here too. So when I hear that we need to improve on transparency, I just have to draw people's attention to this. This is, to me, the ultimate expression of transparency. Most municipalities in the state are still on Zoom. So thank you to our staff for an outstanding job.
Great. Definitely echo that. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Goss. First of all, go Sierra Madre Brewers. Woo-hoo. And wish them well tonight. It would be nice if we could show up for them tonight and support them. I do want to recognize it is Pride Month, and although we don't have any activities in town, hopefully folks are aware of different activities throughout the region if you'd like to participate and support. And I also wanted to piggyback on Councilmember Parkhurst's report on the California Conservation Corps. If you haven't seen the Mountain Views News, you can see the picture in the front and a short article about it, but it really gives you a sense of how many people really contributed to clearing 20 acres, both in Bailey and Mount Wilson trails. Over 12,000 hours were booked, and that was over $380,000 of in-kind. And again, the timing of this couldn't have been more appropriate when Councilmember Parkhurst had brought up the issue of how can we find funding to address our vegetation and help manage the wildfire areas. And a day later, this connection happened. So thank you to Sierra Madre Fire Department for leading those efforts with California Conservation Corps. I did kind of laugh because I heard one of the vegetation plants that were collected and dumped were wild mustard. And I told them, you know, my family knows how to cook them. So if anyone finds those, I'd be happy to see a bag of that on my door, and I'll find the recipe and I'll share it with all of you. But again, thank you to California Conservation Corps. Okay, so with that, we'll move into public comments. I would like to open it up for anyone that would like to comment on any item that is not on the agenda. If you can make your way to the dais, and then I'll also look over here at Madam City Clerk to see if we received any public comments online, and I see that we have a couple, but I want to open it up first to those that are present at the meeting today to report. I cannot tell if Ms. Canterbury is walking to the dais or if she's cruising across the park.
I was trying to figure out if you were going to read them first,
Oh.
the comments.
No,
Anyway.
we'll do that afterwards.
Anyway, it's I took my mask off. It's Carol Canterbury, 46 Victoria Lane, and I'm with the Sierra Madre Community Foundation, and we are very, very excited about sponsoring the 5K run on Monday, July 5th, not July 4th, July 5th. And the race starts at 7:30. We are signed up. We have an online presence with the city of Sierra Madre. I'm trying to read my, they have it on active communities / Sierra Madre, and it's easy to register on. We're going to have t-shirts. We're going to have raffle prizes. The race will start at 7:30. It's 3.1 miles. And then after the race, then our beautiful parade will start at 10 a.m. So that's what I'm here for. And it's easy to sign up. First 175 people get t-shirts.
Great.
So sign up and you'll get your t-shirt.
Thank
All right.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Arndt, my name. I have a question about the development that's going to be taking place in the monastery property. I don't know who to recommend it to, but I was thinking it would be very nice if whoever's doing the development up there, and I've never been able to get the company on the phone, to put in a skateboard park for our young people and our skateboarders. It just seems to me that, I know in the past it's been said they're not to be skateboarding, et cetera, downtown, still goes on, but they need a place where they can really have fun with their skateboard. So I hope that gets.
Thank you. And I'll encourage you to take a look at the website. There's information there about who to contact and with the proposed development. And I'll also let you know, skateboard park has not been totally eliminated from our discussions. So
Okay.
there might be a possibility for a skateboard
Yeah.
park somewhere else.
I just
or
haven't been
there.
able to reach the people on the phone.
Okay,
in the property. Never
thank
answered.
you. Anyone else for public comment for items not on the agenda, please?
Hey, oh, I'm Shannon. I live at 77 Vista Circle, and this is my friend Suzanne.
Hi.
And we are part of a group of dog owners. Our dogs, Sierra Madre is the city of dogs. And we wanted to know if there are any plans to remodel the dog park.
I have an answer for that. The Girl Scouts are working on a project for that.
How elaborate? So we wanted it to be a little snazzy. How elaborate are we talking?
So I'll encourage you to reach out to our community services director, Rebecca Silva. Is that the right person, city manager? And maybe you can discuss further with her.
Rebecca Silva.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Her last name? Okay, any other comments for public comment? Seeing none, I will ask Madam City Clerk if she can please read the public comments that came in electronically.
Thank you, Mayor. We received 3 emails. The third email was received just a few minutes before the council meeting. These 3 emails are on items not on the agenda. The first email is from Connor Murphy Boyd, and the email reads, "Good afternoon. I won't be able to attend the city council meeting today, but I would once again like to voice my concerns about the monastery building proposal moving forward. In addition to our statewide drought, the preservation of the monastery property is paramount to the qualities and the character of our perfect little town. Having grown up in these Sierra Madre foothills since I was 10 years old, I can attest to the importance of our mountainscape and open spaces as being paramount to our town. Thank you, and I look forward to your decision. Connor Boyd, Designer B Architecture." The second email received is from Alexander Arietta, and the email reads, "Dear City Council members, please read the below article that references the extreme severity of the drought, with California now being officially 100% in drought conditions. The experts are saying they expect this drought to last for multiple years. What is our long-term plan to deal with this? Between the drought and the resulting increased fire risk to our city, it is imperative that the city implement a water moratorium immediately, as the present conditions are worse now than when the city implemented the last water moratorium in 2013. With these significant problems confronting us, it is not rational to delay any further appropriate measures like the critical water moratorium. For these reasons, in addition to the significantly increased traffic drain on already stretched water resources and significantly increased fire risk, we restate our strong opposition to the proposed housing development at the monastery. Please also have this read at City Council meeting tonight. Sincerely, Alex Arietta, Matt Bryant, Barbara Belturo, Preserve Sierra Madre, Stop the Housing Project." The third email was received shortly before the council meeting from Callie Rogers, and the email reads, "I would like to thank you and the City Council again for creating the street dining bump outs throughout the city. These bump outs have been a vital and important part of keeping businesses in Sierra Madre going during the pandemic year. At our brewery, we have dubbed the bump out the City View Terrace, and our patrons love having this additional space to sit. I would like to pass on to you what I have heard from patrons, community members, and even just people passing by on the sidewalk. People sitting in our bump out have said that they have noticed other businesses on Montecito Avenue they have never noticed before, and they had a chance to just sit and enjoy the view. People have described the increased outside dining options as making the city feel more welcoming, active, and dynamic. People that are visiting Sierra Madre for the first time have also said that they plan on coming back more often because of the outdoor seating options. I will also note that many people have mentioned how much more attractive the outdoor seating is in Sierra Madre as opposed to the bump outs in other cities or neighborhoods. Keeping these new and beneficial additions to the city landscape appears to be the right choice for promoting Sierra Madre and the businesses that can flourish here. Thank you, Kelly Rogers. Cheers from Kelly Rogers, RT Rogers Brewery." Madam Mayor, those were the three comments received by city staff for today's meeting.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk, and I like that City View Terrace title. Okay, so the next item on our agenda are action items, and first we have consent calendar. Madam City Clerk, you're up again.
On today's consent calendar, there are 5 consent items. The first is consent item A. It's consideration of resolution 21-35 approving certain demands. It is recommended that the city council approve resolution 21-35 authorizing payment of city warrants in the aggregate amount of $701,995.10. Sierra Madre Library warrants in the aggregate amount of $11,023.71, and payroll transfer in the aggregate amount of $393,411.41 for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2021. Item number B is consideration of Community Services Commission recommendation for acceptance and location of the rotary clock. It is recommended that the City Council accept the rotary clock as a donation to the City of Sierra Madre and approve the sidewalk east of Kirsten Court and parallel to Baldwin Avenue to serve as the location of the clock. Consent item C is consideration of resolution 21-34, authorizing the application to the Director of Industrial Relations, the State of California, for certificate of consent to self-insure workers' compensation liabilities. It is recommended that the City Council approve resolution 21-34, therein authorizing application to the Director of Industrial Relations, State of California, for certificate of consent to self-insure workers for compensation liabilities. Consent item D is consideration of acceptance of low-income rate assistance grant from the San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District. It is recommended that the City Council approve a grant award in the amount of $50,000 from the San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District for the purpose of providing financial assistance to qualified low-income water customers that were negatively impacted by the pandemic. And the last item on the consent calendar is consideration of resolution 21-36, declaring the property located at 487 Woodland Drive to be surplus property. It is recommended that the City Council adopt resolution 21-36, declaring the property located at 487 Woodland Drive, Sierra Madre, California, 91024 to be surplus property. Madam Mayor, that concludes the consent calendar items.
Thank you. So we'll go ahead and start with questions. Do we have any questions on consent calendar item A? Any on item B?
Madam Mayor,
Councilmember Creeps?
I had one question that came up in the staff report that talked about the cost. It mentioned that there was a cost for labor, which I believe the city will essentially bear, but then it talks about that not being inclusive of the purchase and placement of the clock. Someone just confirmed that the purchase of the clock is actually what being donated by the Rotary?
Councilmember Krebs, the Rotary will be donating all expenses, including the clock. So any labor that takes place to install, the Rotary will reimburse the city for.
Even better, thank you.
Any other questions on item B, rotary clock? Item C, the self-insured workers' compensation liabilities. Item D,
Quick question, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Garcia.
I was just wondering if, this is great, by the way, to help people that are in need. My assumption from what I read in the agenda report, it's for people that are in arrears on their water bill. Do we have a plan in place on how to allocate these funds, or are we going to just kind of wait to see how many people are there and kind of do it on a pro rata basis?
Councilmember Garcia, the water district was very clear that each city had to have in place a program identified for low-income water customers. The city of Sierra Madre is fortunate to have a UUT application process already in place. And so we'll be using the existing process to identify any households or customers that would benefit from these grant funds.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk.
You're welcome.
That's helpful because that was also my question. But just as a follow-up, if we don't apply the entire 50,000 to those that are eligible for it, do we have to return the dollars? What happens if there is a balance?
So currently, we're in the process of applying for or accepting applications for the fiscal year 21-22 UUT exemption process. We hope to be able to reach out to some of the delinquent accounts that may be eligible for that application process so that we can make them then eligible for the grant process or the grant funds. And assuming that we're successful and we're able to expend all $50,000, then we won't have to return any of the funds to the water district.
But there's a potential to return.
There
if
is
we
a
don't.
potential to
Okay.
return. Funds must be expended by October of this year.
Great, thank you. Any other questions on item D? Questions on item E?
Madam
Councilmember
Mayor,
Krebs?
thank you, whoever put together this amazing flow chart. One question about, I think the process that we are, the path on the chart that we are pursuing in terms of declaring it surplus land and then putting out for notice and seeing if we have any respondents. But if we go through that path and there are no respondents, we sort of end up with the result that the city may dispose of the property. And is that without time limit, or do we have some period of time in which this has to happen? And then if not, we have to go through this again?
So if, Councilmember Krebs, if we don't receive any responses, then there is no time limit for us to dispose of that property. But we have to start engaging in the negotiations with whoever is interested. We put that property out into the market and see if we can receive any bids. But there is no time limit, no.
Thank you.
Councilmember Garcia?
Yeah, I guess I have a piggyback on that. It wasn't prepared to ask a question, but so if it gets to that process, what is the city's recourse for the cost that would be to get rid of what has been put there by the neighboring residents? So it's my understanding that they quote unquote improved some of the property for their own use, and we would then have to get it back or remove such property. And that would cost the city. So what recourse do we have under that scenario? If any.
Councilmember Garcia, I think that's probably a question best answered offline, only because that property, there has been litigation that the neighboring property owner has said they're going to initiate if the property wasn't sold. So, and the improvements were made by the neighboring property owner. So I think that's probably something we best discuss in closed session if you'd like. Or I'm happy to discuss that with you one-on-one as well.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on item D? Okay, seeing none, we'll open consent calendar up for public comment. Would anyone in the public like to comment on the consent calendar and any items within that? Seeing none, we'll bring it back for discussion. Mayor Pro Tem Goss?
I'd like to just make a quick comment about item B. I just want to acknowledge the Rotary Club for their community spirit and for their generosity. And in particular, President Karen Swisher for her vision here. I think that along with our new development at Kirsten Court, I think that this is going to be something that Sierra Madreans are going to value and possibly cherish for many generations to come. And I just want to publicly acknowledge their efforts and hers in particular.
Thank you, Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem Goss. Any other comments? Okay, do I hear a motion for approval of the consent calendar?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. I think Councilmember Krebs second that one first, maybe just because I was facing her, but I think she had the second. Do I have any further deliberation on the consent calendar? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That looks like it's unanimous with no opposition. Okay, the next item on our agenda is our public hearing. Finance Director Girola Leon will be presenting on fiscal fiscal year 2021 budget. Support squad.
Yes. So good evening, Madam Mayor and City Councilman who proposed budget. And with me, I have both our senior accountants, Selena and Satnam. So Satnam is going to start us off.
Great.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council members. First slide. The overall citywide financial budget is 24.2 million with an estimated positive change in our reserves of 2.2 million.
And I'm just
2.2 million. Next slide, please. Our capital projects for 21-22 include phase 1 of our library remodel, city hall, and public safety improvements. And we will continue on with our water main replacement project, well, and street rehabilitation programs. Next slide, please. For our personnel budget, we will increase by 3 full-time employees while reducing part-time hours across most departments. Next, Hillary will discuss the general fund.
Okay, thank you. So for general fund revenues, we have a proposed 13.3 million. And the major increase in general fund revenues is due to the steady growth in property taxes and also sales tax revenue. Next slide, please. This graph shows our general fund revenues by type. Property taxes makes up about 54% and UUT is 20%. Next slide. For expenditures, we have a proposed 10.5 million with a $200,000 contingency, which is the same as the prior year. The expected change in reserves in the proposed budget is 2.3 million, and this is as a result of City Council leadership as well as a city pandemic response plan. Next slide. It's important to note that during the last budget process, staff implemented a pandemic response plan, and these costs are projected to be added back to the general fund after 21-22. Now on to the next fund, which is water and sewer. Selena.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. The water fund projected revenues are 6.3 million. The operating expenses for this fund are budgeted at 4.5 million. The change in reserve is at 1.7 million, which will be reinvested in capital project. The proposed capital investment for fiscal year 21-22 is total 3.05 million, which is 1 million increase from previous year. Next slide. This chart shows the trend of water fund infrastructure investment through years. The investment in fiscal year 21-22 includes 2.5 million in water main line replacement and about 558,000 in other water infrastructure projects. Next slide, please. The debt payment is 350,000 for the installment agreement. There's no other debt payment. Next slide, please. Following is the sewer fund. The projected revenues are 1.1 million. The operating expenses are budgeted at about 1.2 million. The sewer fund is going to invest 125,000 in sewer camera system in fiscal year 21-22. Next slide, please. Staff recommends the City Council to adopt following resolutions for budget process. Next slide, please. That was the presentation from the Finance Department for fiscal year 21-22. proposed budget. Thank you for listening.
That was a lot of information and very concise slides, which I appreciate. Thanks. I'm sure we have quite a few questions, so hopefully the team can stand by. And I'll just start with just a general question. Finance Director, did we have a delay in any of our capital projects over this last year because of the pandemic? I know we seemed to stay on track with the water infrastructure, but were there any other delays? Or I'm not other delays. Were there delays in capital projects in this past year?
Yes, I know we are going to carry forward the street project, some of that portion, as well as just our purchase of an ambulance for next fiscal year.
Thank you. And then I'm sure I just have one other quick question, and I want to make sure everyone has the opportunity to ask questions also. But in the sewer fund, with the negative net position of the 54,000, can you explain that, and then how the investment capital of the 125,000 works?
Okay, let me bring that up. So in the sewer fund, we see a negative 54. Some of that is a one-time master plan for the sewer that we have this year. It's about 50,000, so that's why we're negative around 50,000. We do have cash, a healthy cash reserve in this fund. So that is how we are investing in the sewer program.
And so it'll make up that difference of the 50,000.
Yes,
shortage.
so next year, we wouldn't have that 50,000 master plan of sewer program. So we would be pretty much net.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And I might have other questions, but let's open it up. The audio today is excellent. I'm not sure what happened, but it's excellent. Thanks, Mike. I don't want to get too close. Who starts with some questions on the proposed budget?
Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Parkhurst.
So on slide 8, we had the pandemic response plan. So that's money that we decided not to spend. Is that right?
So we did spend that funding, but from different sources. So for example, the UAL required payment each year. We use the HR reserve in that fund to pay for it instead of the general fund. As well as 21.
See an investment of $3 million for 21-22. The one thing that gets me a little nervous is kicking the can down the road. So I'm very thankful for where we are with the council, is that there's been tremendous investment in the city, but I don't want to have everything come due to a council 25 or 30 years from now. What can we be doing to plan, like, council, my kids or grandkids council has a huge cost to bear for replacement of water as everything ages out.
So we can be working with our water department to see the plan across maybe like 5 years of what we want to invest. But other than that, we do have an infrastructure charge each fiscal year to cover around 1.2 million in infrastructure investment. And that was started, I think, in 1819, specifically to invest in infrastructure.
Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor,
Councilman Creeth.
I just had a follow-up question to the exchange you had with Councilmember Parkhurst on the pandemic response plan. Is the expected impact on the future budget to these amounts essentially double in the sense that both in terms of the expenditure in that budget year that will come back into the general fund, and are we also looking to then replenish the reserve funds that we took from? So essentially, you know, we're going to pay it back and then pay the current balance in that budget year.
No, those were reserve funds that we saw the internal service fund as well as the PSAF fund can take in. And that was, we wanted to use them one time, but we don't have to replenish it back.
So there's no concern. I mean, those will be robust without being replenished.
No.
And
Any
Mayor?
Oh,
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I probably have less questions than you assume, but I'll try to make it brief. So I'm looking at the investments in capital assets for the water fund, and again, we see that it goes from 2 to 3 million. Was if you know, and this might be a question for the water department, but as far as the infrastructure, I know we did receive a 0% loan, so therefore we are excited about spending that money and speeding up some of the replacement of the water mains. So my assumption is that most of the infrastructure is for water main repair. It might be for some well rehab. I'm not sure. But where's that going to? My question is, are we getting more feet of water main replacement, or are we some of this due to expected increases in prices because commodity prices have been going up, or where's the increase going?
so as mentioned, the infrastructure charge each year is about 1.2 million for us to invest in infrastructure. So that would be part of that 3 million. The rest of about 2 million is going to be from the San Gabriel Valley Water District loan, 0%. And we're going to invest in that. And the investment, I believe it's 2 miles of mainline replacement and other infrastructure projects.
That's great to hear.
And I see the Director Reynoso is here. I don't know if there's
Yeah,
Director, you wanted to add anything on to respond to Councilmember Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor, Councilmember Garcia. So that's correct. So in 2017, we completed the water system master plan and I identified all the water mains that need to be replaced. So water mains are replaced and we have 50 to 75 years to look to replace them again. So we have a lot of time. We have an opportunity right now with the district loan to really go after that list and tackle some of our biggest priorities and further reduce water loss to our system. So it just gives us that opportunity to really go after those lines that are most susceptible to leaks. Typically, we'll budget for 1 mile. It's about $1 million per mile. With the cost of materials right now, we're going to see some materials have gone up over 50%. But our goal is for next fiscal year to complete 2 miles of pipe.
Thank you. And so as we're thinking about this, and this kind of piggybacks on Councilmember Parker's comments and or questions, as we are replacing a lot of water mains all at one time, which we need, and it's great. But I'm thinking about the legacy of Sierra Madre as all of us are. That means that these water mains will start to fail and need to be replaced. Again, a lot of it all at the same time, let's say 50, 75 years from now. So do we have a plan in place as these things age from the water department perspective, and then from the finance department perspective, is there any way we can set up a fund to kind of grow and make sure that we are going to, the city 75 years from now has enough funds to pay for this stuff?
So with the infrastructure charge, and Hillary, you can talk about that if you want, but we do have that infrastructure charge that generates $1.2 to $1.5 million per year specifically for water main replacements. This year, we just have that opportunity with the district loan to take on additional, an additional $1.5 million to $2 million with the water mains, and like I said, just really go after those lines that are causing the leaks that we have. We still repair about 400 leaks per year, so it's still a lot of work that needs to get done, and this is work that really is overdue. This just gives us that opportunity to make some headway.
Thank you.
I think Councilmember Garcia, to add on to that, we want to continue to update our water master plan for mainline replacement, well rehab. Right now, even though things are dramatically better than they were just a few years ago, we're a water system that's still really in crisis. We'll sit down and determine which main lines to replace on an annual basis as opposed to a long-term look. So as the crisis lessens, as more mainline pipe is replaced, as the leaks are reduced, you'll see us expand our outlook further into the horizon for a 5, 10, or 20-year plan. But at where we're at right now is the pipes that are failing or deemed beyond their useful life, moving to failure, are still happening quite rapidly. So the infrastructure charge that we've discussed sets up the fund and finance to make sure we're okay. From the water infrastructure planning perspective, as we get further away from the crisis and normal operations, council will start seeing plans that take into account kind of a normal, healthy water operating system.
Could I have a follow-up to that? Would you, Mr. City Manager, would you characterize the status of our water system more or less since you've been here as in triage? That is, our approach has not been to think about 50 years from now. It's been to essentially eliminate or minimize the worst problems that we've been facing. And my second question is, what is it? I think we were at 32% lost in our city system in 2015. Can you tell me where we're at now?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Goss. So the description of triage is accurate. When we started, we had determined a huge astronomical percentage of our pipes had failed in place. And even though we've made a lot of headway on that, we haven't replaced all the failed pipes, which is why we have 400 leaks per year. In addition to that, another large percentage was deemed beyond their useful life and likely to fail. And as we replaced the pipes that had failed, the pipes that were likely to fail did what they were likely to do, which was fail. So we're still replacing those. Our current water loss is 14%. And we're hoping to get that down below 10%, which is industry standard. We've actually pulled it a couple of times where it was below 10%. Now it's at 14%, which is, again, an indicator that the pipes that are beyond their useful life are failing. So you're seeing a water fund that's in a much better situation today, both financially and operationally than it has been in the past. But it's still not a water infrastructure system that's healthy. It's still in crisis mode.
More follow-up. Is it not also true that as we replace these water mains, the operational costs of the department will start to drop pretty precipitously, and we can take those gains and reinvest them as well?
Mayor Pro Tem Goss, some costs like overtime costs, materials cost, as the leaks go down, will be reduced. But what you'll see, the biggest driver to control cost in an infrastructure system is appropriate maintenance. So as our water crews are not responding to 400 leaks per year, that gives them the ability to do things like turn valves, proactively seek out leaks, and spend more times on the things that make your system healthy overall. And in the long run, that's the surest way to control it and reduce costs.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the budget?
Yeah, just sticking with water. I'm looking at page 6 of the agenda report, and we see the revenue for 2021 increasing by just over 2 million. And again, I just want to see if that is, and I'm not an accountant, I'm an economist, and I teach finance, so I'm not an accountant, so I don't know how this stuff is recorded. I did see our city treasurer showed up, and he is an accountant. But as we look at that, is that revenue increase recognized from a financing resource, such as the 0% bond, or what is that extra revenue coming from?
We are looking at 2021 amended. Is that the column we're looking at?
Yes. And I
But-
know that's this current year, but I just want to have an understanding of.
Yes, so the 2 million in other revenues is the sale of the cyclic units, 2 million to the San Gabriel Water Valley Water District, sorry. And that was a one-time revenue.
I recall that. Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, my assumption was that that financing would not show up in revenue. So that's why I was a little confused there. And you answered that question perfectly. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think I only have one more question, Madam Mayor.
Please.
So as we're looking at, we received a report that had been amended to, I think it was 200,000. And correct me if I'm wrong, was that 200,000 because we did not purchase, but we will purchase an ambulance or a paramedic device?
Yes, correct. It was budgeted for 2021, and because of delays, we're not going to be able to receive it in 2021, so we moved it to carry over to the next fiscal.
Okay, so my follow-up question, again, I'm not an accountant, so I don't know, but if we're looking at attachments, specifically attachment 4, which is the capital projects and purchases for fiscal year 21 through 2022 schedule, I'm looking at the second page, and I don't see the purchase of an ambulance on there. Should it be in there?
Yes, I corrected that schedule as well, and I will provide that to Laura.
Fantastic. I just want to make sure you guys got the award last year. I want to make sure you get that award once again. That was a great accomplishment.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, the award, yes. But I do remember that you'd sent a revised budget report. Is that change that you referred to, Finance Director, in that most recent change?
Yes, so
Yep.
that one is in that staff report.
Right. Any other questions, Councilmember Creeps?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to commend the finance team for not only an amazing presentation and just, as mentioned earlier, putting a lot of very technical data into very digestible form, but just overall commend you in keeping the fiscal health of the city where we need it to be and probably beyond where people expect. So thank you for all of that you do for that, because it gives us a lot of flexibility to respond to the needs of the community and really do the kinds of things that we haven't done for a long time. So thank you.
So I'm sure there are a lot of kudos that'll go around, but before we do that, I want to make sure we open this up for public comment. So would anyone like to comment on this public hearing item on the proposed fiscal year 2021-2022 budget? And I heard that Treasurer Mario's in the house and present. And Treasurer Mario, feel free to come up to the podium if you have any comments, not to put you on the spot, but to put you on the spot. And please, if anyone else would like to comment on the budget for this public hearing, please make your way to the podium.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You know, I was there this morning at City Hall, and my comment to the finance director was, this is really an awesome budget. If you think about all that goes into a budget and all the columns and all the rows and all the discussions, I'm sure they had hours and hours. And you step back and when you look at it, it's over $2 million surplus in operations, which is so commendable, not only for the city staff, but for the council and prior councils. And then that money is being reinvested back in the city in form of capital expenditures, really through the streets. And that's really through all of this, rows and all this hours of time, but that is what a budget is supposed to do. We've created a operating surplus, taken that operating surplus and using it for capital expenditures. And there's been some questions about reserves. In effect, the reserves are intact for the future when they may or may not be needed. So I think the budget's very well done.
Excellent. Thank you, Treasurer Mario. Good to see you. Seeing that there are no other comments, do we have any public comments that were submitted electronically? City Clerk Aguilar?
Madam Mayor, there were no comments received by email for this item.
Great, thank you so much. So I'll bring it back for discussion, comments, and kudos for staff if anyone else wants to provide that. And I'll just start and just to echo what Councilmember Creeves had said is it's really nice to be able to see all of this work put together in 14 slides, but we know there's so much that has gone into the work to put this together. And just like Treasurer Mario had stated, I mean, the fact that we are in a surplus of $2.3 million, we went through a pandemic, we went through so many challenges over this past year, 90% funded in our obligations for pension projected is almost unheard of. And I say this all the time. I can't wait to see the comparison of all the cities and see where we are with that. But I know we'll be in a very good spot for that position. And to project $3 million in water infrastructure investment. And just to put this all in perspective, we did for the proverbial kick the can down the road for many years. And even 5 years ago, we were probably only investing $300,000 to $400,000 in our water infrastructure. And as difficult as it was to put that surplus charge in, we did hear a lot from folks about their water bill and the complaints about it. But at the end of the day, we could not ignore it any longer. And just as the city manager, England, had said about the state of our water, we're still in crisis mode, but we're in a much better place and we're going in the right direction. For San Gabriel Valley Water District to assist us with a low interest loan is really going to be extremely helpful. And, you know, for us to, when we visited, I guess I just visited with Director Miles Prince to see the work that was done on Grandview just for those 2 miles and the time and resources and efforts that it goes into that. And also the challenges it poses to residents when they're trying to go through it. It takes, there's so much that goes into just changing 1 mile of street, or I'm sorry, of water main. So I know it's a slow ride, but I think we're getting to the right place. We have the right projections and budgets that are in place. And again, I just want to commend the staff for a really great job in the work that you've done here in proposing the budget, but also the staff, City Manager England for his leadership over this past year to get us to this point.
Madam Mayor?
Please.
Thank you. Yeah, and I just want to piggyback on what the mayor just said. As I reflect and when I was really kind of getting involved with the city at the city hall level back in 2014, 2015, 2016, that time, we were in a crisis where our reserves weren't where we would want them to be anyway. And not only that, we were spending out of those reserves just to meet the general fund. So not only staff, but the previous council and city management have gotten us to a place where now we are having, I don't want to call it a problem, but we have so much excess reserve that we should do something with it, right? And when I teach corporate finance, and it's corporate finance, not city finance, one of the worst things to have on your balance sheet is excess cash, because that doesn't do anything for you, right? It's not making a lot of money. And we have money in the LAIF fund, and Treasurer Mario is doing a fantastic job along with finance staff of getting a good return on our cash. But this is kind of, again, piggybacking on Treasurer Mario's comments, is that excess cash needs to get reinvested in capital projects in the city to make sure that we aren't creating a monster that we have been faced with and not kicking the can on down the road. So, you know, I encourage, as we look at this budget and as we see these excess reserves above our fund balance where we need that reserve at, that we as a council will consider capital projects in this coming year to reinvest those excess funds. May it be the library. Yeah, we have slides falling off at Sierra Vista Park in the the playground. So as we're looking at the useful life of some of the assets here in town, I just encourage us as a council to not just simply let these excess funds ride in the LAIF fund and make a few percent, but to reinvest in capital infrastructure in order for councils down the line not having to pick up the ball in the can, as to speak, and deal with that. So again, we are in this good problem because of what previous councils and the finance department has done, and I want to congratulate you on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Garcia. Anyone else like to comment on the budget?
Madam Mayor?
Councilmember Parkhurst?
Yeah, I'll build on what Councilmember Garcia said. He said it more generally, but I'd like to call it out specifically that, Madam Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem, you guys have done an incredible job. I mean, you make our job easy. I know over the 6 years you guys have been on council that it wasn't always this clear and this easy. So thank you for the efforts of getting us to this point. And I also echo that, I think we need to look at how we can continue to invest in the city. And I agree with Councilmember Garcia on investing in infrastructure. And I'd like to take that kind of our discussion we've had on water and the comments that we received in items not on the agenda and see if we can't do something to further our work on water beyond our infrastructure. The letter that we received was accurate in saying that the 100% of the state is in drought. The West is in a really bad drought. And what can we do? Can we have staff investigate how we can continue to improve and reduce our water use so that we continue. The thing I love about the city is that from a water perspective, we've really looked at this on a generational level. We have, the founders of the city, one of the first things they set up was a water organization. And we've been managing our water reserves incredibly well. And we're going to have to continue to do that, especially in the conditions we're going into. So I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Councilmember Parkhurst. Any other comments? Mayor Pro Tem Goss?
Yes, please. First of all, you guys have been on the council since December, and you've got a piece of this too. So it's not all previous council, and I think we're all counting on you guys. What we've seen to keep this going, we need you to step up, as you have been doing. So I feel great about you all. I do look back somewhat as I reflect on those years. I recall that the best thing we did was hire our city manager. And I think when we changed leadership, wasn't just hiring him, was standing back and giving him the room to operate, not bicker among ourselves. It seems to me that that is the best thing a council can do, to hold government accountable, but at the same time, restrain ourselves from the kinds of things that cause governments to break up. So I will take credit for some of that, and I'll share that with Pocha, Harabedian, Delmar, and our wonderful Mayor Arizmendi. Other than that, I think we're getting great staff direction. We as Councilmember Krebs correctly points out, what a wonderful job of taking complex information, putting it in digestible formats for lay people, mostly able to try to understand. And so I'm always somewhat at a loss to why the public doesn't show up or doesn't send comments on something this momentous, because this kind of budget is precisely what our treasurer called it. It is exactly the way government is supposed to be done. So kudos to everybody involved, including everybody in this council.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Goss. So just again, I do want to call out Finance Director Gorilla Leon for her leadership on this effort and thank her and her team for putting this together. So with that, I will entertain a motion to approve Resolution 21-30, 21-29, Resolution 21-31, and PFA Resolution number 75.
I move to approve.
Thank you, Councilmember Parkhurst. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Thank you, Councilmember Garcia. Do we have any further deliberation or discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries unanimously with no opposition. Great. So the next item on our agenda is discussion, and the first item is Resolution 21-32, and I believe this will be City Attorney Giragosian that will present on this.
Thank you, Mayor Arizmendi. Today's report is going to be an oral report. Sierra Madre Municipal Code, Section 2.04080 states the procedures for appointment of members of boards and commissions shall be established by resolution of the city council. The city clerk's office tried to find such a resolution and we weren't able to. And we realized that perhaps we don't have such a resolution on the books. But we do have an existing practice and staff wants to formalize that practice. At the last city council meeting, we submitted a draft ordinance for the city council and the city council's direction was to come back with a resolution so that the city council can have greater flexibility in amending what that procedure is going forward. So staff has done just that. We've come back with a resolution and I'll draw your attention to section 2 of the resolution titled Appointments. That's the heart of it. And I'd just like to read points A through D and that'll conclude the presentation. So A, the mayor shall appoint the city council members as liaisons to commissions at her or his discretion. B, the mayor shall appoint all members of city commissions and boards after consultation and recommendation by the city council. C, the mayor shall appoint all city representatives with voting power on bodies outside the city after consultation with and recommendation by the city council. Lastly, D, the mayor shall appoint all city representatives without voting power on bodies outside the city at her or his discretion. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, City Attorney Garagosian. Do we have any questions on this item from council?
Madam Mayor,
Councilmember Parkhurst?
just a clarification. Attorney Garagosian, why the difference with item C? I mean, I know there's more importance with the voting power. Is it just been tradition that we haven't had city council consultation on that?
So I'm not aware of what the reasoning is behind the tradition, but I think it does make sense from a practical standpoint because anytime an individual can bind the city, it seems like the city council has required the entire council to be in agreement as to that person's appointment. But so for example, if you look at D, a city representative without voting power on bodies outside the city, that person cannot bind the city to anything. Same thing with A. The liaisons don't bind the city to anything. But B and C, in those specific instances, we are appointing individuals who will bind the city.
Councilmember Garcia?
So C, is that referring to appointments such as organizations like the Southern California Association of Governments, et cetera?
Exactly.
So I know generally it's been a city council member. When I read this language, can it be someone outside the city council that can be appointed?
That depends on the organization. Some organizations require city council members. Some organizations require, it could be a resident of the community. It depends on the bylaws or the charter or whatever the other organization.
Thank you.
May I have a follow-up on that?
Councilmember Parkhurst?
Isn't former Mayor Capocha on the mosquito control board still? Is that?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yeah, and at one point that was a resident that was appointed to that position prior to the appointment of Councilmember Capocha. Okay, any other questions on this item? Seeing none, do we have anyone in the audience for public comment on discussion item 1 for resolution 21-32? Seeing no one running to the dais. City Clerk Aguilar, do we have any public comment that was submitted?
No emails were received on this item, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So we'll bring it back for further discussion. Comments?
Madam Mayor?
Councilmember Creeps?
I mean, I've only done this once, so I don't know how historical practice it is, but it did seem that prior to the mayor appointing council members as liaisons, that there was consultation in terms of preference or discussion around what council might want. I'm wondering if you want to codify that process or just allow full discretion by the mayor to do those.
So are you referring to item
A.
B? Oh, A.
It's always discretionary.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine as the way it's worded here. Is there a recommendation that you have to change that?
Yeah, I was just wondering if we wanted to add the consultation piece because it did seem like there was consultation. So in practice, so I just didn't want to make this be something different than what was actually done typically.
Yeah, I'm okay with that too, because in items B and C is after consultation. You're saying to add after consultation on item A.
That's what I would think.
Yeah, and that's been practice. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I can support that.
Okay. So if you'd like to make a motion to approve with your recommended changes.
Sure. So I would move to approve resolution number 21-32 with an amendment to section 2, item A, to read, the mayor shall appoint city council members as liaisons to commissions and boards after consultation with those city council members.
As recommendation by the city council, same language.
I mean, to me, recommendation might be an additional step. I'm thinking of the process that we went through to do the library board of trustee and ENR appointments earlier this year, where there was sort of formal discussion. I'm thinking consultation would cover kind of the process that we did for board, board or commission liaisons. It was sort of like a ranking. What was everybody interested in?
Okay, so the motion as proposed, if it's an understanding in how it's proposed in language, do we have a second?
Second.
On that? Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Goss. And do we have further deliberation or discussion on this item? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Seeing no opposition, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, and the last item on the agenda tonight is management compensation study, and City Manager England, I believe you'll be presenting on this item.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. In December 2018, the City Council directed staff to complete a compensation study for management positions. This compensation study was to include public, private, nonprofit, healthcare, and contract labor markets. We brought that back to council in October of 2019. And the City Council at that time adopted an updated compensation philosophy and salary matrix for management employees. We staff had intended to bring back annually until we got to a position of maintenance. But during the pandemic year, we didn't bring it back, which brings us to this evening. The proposal before City Council tonight is to again update the salary matrix for management employees. If approved as presented tonight, it will bring Sierra Madre to 91.9% of the median marketplace pay, as we have defined, and 93% of the average marketplace pay. And we believe at that point, this would become a maintenance issue with no further increases outside of what the market does. Sorry, that's the end of my presentation. I will
You're
take
done.
any questions.
Thank you, City Manager. Are there questions on the management compensation study for the City Manager? Councilmember Garcia.
City Manager England. So I do have a question. So a lot of and first of all, I want to say I appreciate the agenda report with the historical perspective. But the question is that as I'm looking at the ranges and the metric for the ranges, the metric tends to be a central tendency metric, such as a mean or a median, and how we are relative to the mean or median. And as I see, as we increase our middle step to be within market range, we are getting very, very close to the maximums within. And I didn't see any discussion or anything regarding the low and the minimum and the maximum. Are those going to change by the same percentage increase as the center step, or what's going to happen with the minimums and the maximums and the other steps, to be frank?
Yes, Councilmember Garcia. The reason we chose to have most of the conversation around the mid-range is for a couple of reasons. One, when we look at peer cities, we found that cities have all sorts of different steps. So some will have 10, some 7, some 5. And it became very difficult to compare minimum and maximum when there's a wider spread. So we went with the central tendency. To your specific question, yes, the minimums and the maximums will increase at the same percentage as the mid-range will. Sorry, the second part of why we use mid-range is private sector often doesn't have reportable steps or healthcare or nonprofit. So to do that, we had to average sectors within the same industry with different employers, which is why everything comes to the mid-range.
Thank you. And I have performed these types of analyses on my own professionally, and I appreciate the way you guys did this by not only having public sector, but also looking at the private sector. It's a more robust way to do it. And it's I guess it's more of a comment than a question, but I'll leave it at that.
Okay, do we have any other questions on the management compensation study?
I guess maybe I'm just being a smart aleck here asking Mr. City Manager, do you recall where we were when you got here?
Yeah, well, after the first update, Mayor Pro Tem Goss, we were at 77.4%. And I didn't have the initial study before the update. So after the first update, it was 77.4.
Below that though.
Yeah, correct.
So the question here I have is related to that, and that is, I assume you can verify this, that recruitment has been easier and retention has been more robust as we have had more to offer our potential employees and management.
Mayor Pro Tem Goss, when our first year, when we started this, our total turnover in the organization was around 40%.
Wow.
And compensation is a part of keeping employees. It's also your culture making a great place to work. So we've seen retention increase. To your second question, recruitment has increased dramatically, where we're getting multiple qualified applicants for positions when previously sometimes we would get only one applicant in total or applicants who would apply but were not qualified.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, we will open this up for public comment. If anyone would like to comment on the management compensation study as presented, please come to the podium. Did I call that the dais earlier? Did. The podium. We are the dais. Anyone would like to step up to the podium? Okay, seeing none, Madam City Clerk, did we get any emails on this item?
Mayor, there were no emails received for this.
Great, thank you. So we'll bring it back for discussion on the management compensation study.
Madam Mayor,
Councilmember Creeps.
just a question about process here. Well, there's not a particular resolution, proposed. I'm not sure exactly what the outcome of this discussion is meant to be.
Councilmember Creeps, if council responds positively to this discussion, the Assistant City Manager will return with asking council for a formal vote on changes to the classification and compensation matrix.
Thank you.
So any comments? Councilmember Garcia.
Yeah, so I'll kind of finish up the comment I had during the question phase. Yeah, I think the way that staff is going about this and looking at a robust market instead of just looking at our peer municipalities, but also looking at private sector is a wonderful idea, because we're not only losing, or previously I would assume we're not only losing employees to the public sector, but also the private sector. So it's a good way to go about it. So it's a good job there. And it's nice to see that City Hall and or the other portions of our city, public safety, library, et cetera, is not in a revolving door anymore. We're having retention and we have changed the culture from what I've seen. So that's a great thing. Now we're talking about numbers here, but the culture is very important for retention and recruitment as well. So kudos to that.
Thank you, Councilmember Garcia. Anyone else like to comment?
I'd like to just add my in complete agreement with Councilmember Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor
Mayor.
Pro Tem. Yeah, Councilmember Creeps.
I just wanted to say that I think, my personal perspective, and it seems to be shared, as evidenced by the staff report, is that, while these may seem like, large increases to the average person, I mean, to me, long-term retention is so much cheaper and more cost-effective for the city than trying to constantly recruit and train and get new staff in a place to be as successful as our staff has been. And so, I mean, I would caution folks who look at the raw numbers and think that they are high and, should we really be paying people this much more, to suggest that a lot more long-term view is that this is actually a small investment for larger reward, and the benefit is well beyond just the dollar, or the expense of the benefit is small compared to the reaping of the rewards at the end of the day, that we have a competent and invested and happy and consistent staff.
Thank you, Councilmember Creeps. Councilmember Parkhurst, do you have any comments?
I just want to thank staff for all the hard work in getting this here. Yeah, this is a nice place to be, and I'll just echo what everyone else is. Thank you.
Not much to add. This took years in the making to get to this point, and I know we're only looking at the management compensation study. We have other classes we need to consider, but we're in the right direction. And the revolving door, that we had talked about earlier, city manager had talked about a 40%, not retention rate, turnover. Yeah, thank you. And just to hear those numbers, it's really difficult for a city our size and a staff our size to be able to look at consistency, effectiveness, and productivity when you're looking at that kind of turnover. And the philosophy, if anyone wants to really get excited about compensation studies, it's actually very interesting when you're looking at, as Councilmember Garcia had shared, the comparisons. Is that I think at one point we were just looking at other municipalities, and we cannot compare to a San Francisco or a Pasadena or Los Angeles. It's just it is apples and oranges, for lack of cliche. But to be able to bring in other like peer cities, and also to compare to the job classification itself in the private sector has been really extremely helpful. But to be a 93% average of what we're looking at for compensation, and 92% of the median. And again, we're looking at other classifications to get us to those same numbers so that we can look at the retention. And I'm excited about this. Compensation study isn't really always exciting, but budget and compensation tonight is very exciting. So I don't know, since we're not taking a vote on this, I think we have direction in order to bring this back to council for an approval.
Correct, Mayor. We have direction.
Thank you. Great. And that brings us to the end of our agenda. And do we have any action items for future agendas and future meetings?
Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Creeps.
I had two items. One is piggybacking on the budget process, and I think I talked about this with city manager. I do think it's appropriate, given the budget process this year, to maybe set a time somewhere in the budget year to revisit how we might allocate some of the reserve and the surplus to some of the capital improvement projects that we've been mentioning, or others that might be of interest to the community, and think about holding that into an amended budget at some point during the budget year.
Okay, thank you.
And
Mayor?
then just one more thing, sorry. The other thing I would like, and I had a conversation with Captain Snyder at the Conservation Corps ceremony, and I think it might be useful for either Captain Snyder or someone from the California Conservation Corps, or one or both, to come back and maybe give a more detailed report about the work. I saw, some local dissension about maybe the magnitude of the clearing, and the leaving of certain materials on the ground. And I got a really nice education about the process and the philosophy behind all of that. And I think it might be useful for that report, and maybe the final, kind of the numbers of all of the work that they did, and some of the background of how the processes were determined, that I think would be a good educational point for the community. And Captain Snyder seemed, quite amenable to doing that. So I think that might be something that would be worth
Great.
agendizing.
Great, thank you for sharing that. Mayor Pro Tem Goss.
I would like to agendize a discussion about a new skate park.
I knew you would. It didn't die, is what I said. So, okay.
Because we've been hearing people come to the podium for years about this. There's a latent board out. Not a slam dunk. There are different points of view on it, but I think it's time we had a public discussion about it. And who knows what could happen? We have some money apparently.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Goss. I think that was noted.
Madam
Councilmember
Mayor.
Parkhurst?
Yeah, I know we've had a presentation, I think it was Director Prince. Prince. But in light of the drought, I think it would be helpful to have an update and what are they doing in response to it, and what can the city and its residents do in response to it. And we should jump on this one as quick as, we should get people starting to continue to work on it and not lose sight of what we've done in the past.
And former Mayor Capocha will be happy you said that because he actually asked me to bring that up during one of our walks. So, okay, so looks like we have items for future meetings. And if we have nothing else, we will go ahead and adjourn. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.